Ever scroll through social media and you get that like kind of eerie feeling like, is the algorithm reading my mind?
Mhm.
Or maybe you bump into someone and realize you've got a friend in common with them, someone that you never would have connected to otherwise.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder, right? Like, what are the invisible threads that kind of tie our universe together?
It's that sense of like a hidden connection. Like there's
Mhm.
a bigger picture we only see these little glimpses of.
Exactly. And that's what we're diving into today. We're looking at the Urantia book and specifically paper 56, which goes into this, well, mind-blowing concept, really, of universal unity. And,
Mm.
the Urantia book is known for its bold claims about, well, everything, really.
Yeah.
We're going to try to sift through some of the complexities, see if we can pull out some real nuggets of insight.
Yeah. And I mean, the book's starting point is, well, about as bold as it gets, right? Like God is unity.
Hmm.
And not just in some kind of abstract sense, but like as a fundamental reality.
Okay, so we're not just talking about interconnectedness here, are we? We're talking about the entire universe being part of one unified, mind-bogglingly huge thing.
That's the idea. The text actually describes the universe as this single vast mechanism that's controlled by one infinite mind.
Okay.
So it's like every galaxy, every star, even every thought, every dream. Those are all ultimately facets of this single unified consciousness.
I'm already feeling a little overwhelmed, and I'm not even like, dealing with my to-do list, which is a mile long on most days.
Yeah.
But let's stick with this for a second. If God is this ultimate unity, how does the Urantia book help us get a handle on the different ways that this actually plays out in the universe?
Well, it acknowledges that like our everyday experience often feels anything but unified.
Yeah.
Right? We see diversity, we see chaos, sometimes we even see conflict, but it argues that this is a limited perspective, one that's bound by our experience of time and space.
Mm-hmm.
It's like standing right up, too close to a giant mosaic and can't actually see the bigger picture.
So how do we zoom out then? How do we start to see the bigger picture of this unity?
The Urantia book breaks it down into three main levels: the physical, the intellectual, and the spiritual.
Okay.
And you can think of them kind of like layers of cake, right?
Okay.
Each one distinct, but ultimately all part of the same, well, delicious whole.
Okay, well, let's start with the layer we can at least wrap our heads around. Let's talk about the physical universe. How can something so vast, right? With its billions of galaxies, how can that possibly be considered unified? It's not like there's this, giant cosmic string tying everything together.
Not a string, no. But the book does point to something even more fundamental: gravity.
Okay.
Think about it. Gravity's everywhere. It's inescapable. It affects everything in the universe, no matter how large or small.
Okay, that makes sense, yeah. Gravity is a pretty universal force.
Right.
But how does that connect to the idea of God as unity?
Well, the Urantia book takes it a step further. It claims that all gravity across the entire cosmos actually originates from and is centered in paradise.
Paradise being.
Yeah.
For our listeners who need a little refresher.
Paradise is described as the central dwelling place of God, so to speak, the very heart of existence. But it's not actually in the universe in the sense that we could point to it with a telescope.
Okay, hold on. If it's not in the universe, where is it then? And how can it be the source of something, well, as fundamental as gravity?
And that's where it gets truly mind-bending, right?
Okay.
Because the book claims that paradise exists before space and time, as we understand them.
Okay.
Like before the Big Bang, before there was even before paradise was already there.
So, okay, now my head is officially spinning. How can something exist before time? It's like trying to imagine what's north of the North Pole.
Right. It defies our typical understanding of reality. But the book gives us this really intriguing concept: the unqualified absolute.
The unqualified absolute. All right, you're going to have to break that down for me.
Imagine the unqualified absolute as, well, the foundation of reality itself, like the bedrock on top of which the entire universe of time and space is built. It's like the canvas that the entire cosmic drama unfolds upon, right?
Yeah.
And this absolute acts as a bridge between the timelessness of paradise and the time-bound existence of our material universe.
So you're saying that because paradise exists outside of time and space, it needs this bridge, this unqualified absolute to be able to interact with, well, the physical universe.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
It's how the Urantia book explains how something beyond time can create and influence things within time.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get a feel for this. So if paradise is this source outside of time and the unqualified absolute is this bridge, then gravity is like the cable connecting everything back to the source.
That's a great way to put it. And it's not just physical matter that's drawn back to paradise through this gravitational connection. The book also talks about pure energy and pure spirit as also being centered there within the being of the Paradise Father.
So even on the most fundamental levels, we're talking matter, energy, spirit, everything ultimately traces back to this single source. This is starting to feel less like, just a random collection of galaxies and more like a perfectly designed watch, maybe,
Right.
with all of these countless intricate parts that are all working together.
That's a great analogy. And in this cosmic watch, paradise is the mainspring. It's the source of all movement and energy. But if we're sticking with this watch analogy, we also need to understand the other mechanisms that are at work.
And I'm guessing those mechanisms would be the intellectual and spiritual levels of unity that the Urantia book talks about.
Exactly. So we've started to unpack the physical layer, but the universe isn't just this collection of matter and energy, right? It's also a realm of thought, of consciousness, of spirit.
Okay, so then if gravity is that force that's unifying the physical universe, what's the gravity, so to speak, that holds things together on a mental and spiritual level?
Well, if God is the ultimate unity,
Yeah.
and the universe is this unified expression of God, then it stands to reason
That God's mind would be the ultimate unifying force for everything on an intellectual and spiritual level as well.
you're catching on quickly. The Urantia book suggests that mind, specifically the mind of God, is the bridge between the spiritual and the material realms.
Okay. I can see how our own minds can bridge that gap between what we experience physically and what we, I guess you could say, feel on a deeper level. We use our minds to think about things beyond our immediate senses. But how does that work on a cosmic scale?
Remember the Trinity, Father, Son, and Spirit.
Of course.
The Urantia book presents this fascinating dynamic between those three beings.
Okay, refresh our memory. How does the Trinity play into this idea of the cosmic mind?
The book explains it this way. The Father's thought, which exists in the spiritual realm, finds expression through the eternal Son. And it's through the Son that this thought, this divine intention, expands outward and creates the material universes.
Okay, I'm following so far. So we've got the Father's thought, we've got the Son's creative action, but where does the infinite spirit or the cosmic mind fit into all of this?
The infinite spirit is the bridge, the living link, if you will, between the Father's thought and the Son's creative action.
Yeah.
It's the conduit through which the Father's will flows out into the cosmos, and the Son's actions manifest in reality.
So it's like the Father is the architect with the blueprint, the Son is the master builder bringing it to life, and the infinite spirit is the communication network, the shared language that allows them to collaborate on this cosmic scale.
Now you're getting it. The infinite spirit is the cosmic mind, the intelligence that permeates every corner of existence, and it ensures that everything works in harmony with the Father's will and the Son's actions.
Wow, okay. Now we're really cooking with gas. So we've got gravity, we've got the cosmic mind. How does the spiritual level of unity fit into all of this? Because this is where things always get a bit fuzzy for me.
Well, remember that idea of everything being drawn back to the source.
Yeah.
Just as the Urantia book talks about physical gravity being centered in paradise, it also describes something called spirit gravity.
Spirit gravity. Intriguing. Tell me more. Spirit gravity. Okay, that sounds intense. Is that like some cosmic tractor beam that's pulling our souls back to paradise?
You could think of it that way, but instead of a physical force like gravity, spirit gravity is more like this irresistible pull towards perfect unity with the eternal Son. It's like the deepest yearning of every soul to return back to its source.
Okay, yeah, I can kind of feel that, like a homing instinct for our souls. But if God is this ultimate unity, right, and spirit ultimately comes from God, then why does it feel like there are so many different expressions of, well, the spiritual realm? I mean, even in the Urantia book, you've got all of these different beings, different levels of spirit. It's a lot to process.
It is a lot. And the Urantia book, it doesn't shy away from that complexity, but it does remind us that even with all of this seeming diversity, all spirit ultimately originates from a single source. Remember the Trinity.
Always. It's like the cosmic recipe, right? For, well, everything. But how does the Trinity help us make sense of this idea of spiritual unity when there's so much, well, seeming difference?
Well, the Urantia book describes the spirit realm as having this incredible duality. So on the one hand, you have the eternal Son, who embodies pure, perfect spirit.
Okay, so that tracks with what we were discussing earlier. The Son as that expression of the Father's thought, that pure creative energy.
Exactly. But then, through the actions of the infinite spirit, this pure spirit is for lack of a better term, fragmented into countless individual expressions.
Fragment. So it's like taking a single beam of light and then refracting it through a prism to create this, rainbow of colors.
That's a great way to visualize it. Each color is a distinct, right? But they all originate from the same source. So in the same way, each individual spirit, each thought adjuster, each seraphim, even our own souls, these are all unique expressions of the one infinite spirit.
That's a really beautiful image. But you use the term pure spirit fragmentation. And I mean, it makes sense in the context of this prism analogy we're using, but it also sounds a little, I don't know, a little violent, like something is being broken apart. Help me understand this in a way that doesn't make me fear for my soul.
It's understandable to feel that way, but the Urantia book assures us that this fragmentation isn't a negative thing. It's not about diminishing that original spirit, but rather about allowing it to inhabit and animate the vastness of creation. So it's through this incredible act of self-giving that God's spirit can be present in every corner of the cosmos, in every living thing.
So instead of thinking of it as breaking something apart, it's more like sharing, like sharing a single flame to light countless candles. Each candle has its own unique flame, but they all trace back to that same source.
Now you've got it. It's through this sharing that God's spirit can be directly experienced on, well, every level of existence, from the grandest celestial being all the way down to the humblest creature on a planet like Urantia.
That actually makes me think about the thought adjusters, those, little fragments of the Father Spirit that the Urantia book says reside within us. So if we each have this direct connection to the Father through the thought adjuster, does that mean we're already experiencing this spiritual unity in a very real way?
Precisely. The thought adjuster is like the most tangible example of this pure spirit fragmentation, right? It's a personalized gift from the universal Father. It's a spark of his own being that's residing within each of us, guiding us towards greater understanding and ultimately union with God.
Okay, I've got to admit, knowing that there's a piece of the first source and center, so to speak, residing in me, that's pretty mind-blowing. But if we're already experiencing this connection, why does the journey towards spiritual unity feel so long? And let's be honest, sometimes downright impossible.
That's a question that's been echoed throughout spiritual traditions for millennia. The Urantia book suggests that while we are inherently connected to the Father through our thought adjusters, realizing that unity, it's an ongoing process. It's a journey of spiritual growth. It's choosing to align ourselves with the will of the Father and allowing that fragment of perfect spirit to transform us, well, from the inside out.
So it's not just a matter of, having the thought adjuster along for the ride. Like, we actually have to actively participate in this process of spiritual unification.
Exactly. And that's where the concepts of mind gravity and spirit gravity become so crucial. They're like the guiding forces that are pulling us ever closer to a state of perfect unity with the Father.
Okay, so how do these two gravities work together to draw us toward that ultimate unity with God? It's like trying to picture two different gravitational fields overlapping and interacting with each other.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
Just as physical gravity governs the interactions of matter and energy, mind gravity and spirit gravity influence our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions, subtly nudging us towards spiritual wholeness.
So it's like we're being gently pulled in two directions at once.
Yeah.
Towards greater intellectual understanding through the cosmic mind and towards this deeper spiritual connection through the spirit gravity that's emanating from the eternal sun.
Precisely. And it's in the space where those two forces intersect, where intellectual understanding meets spiritual experience, that we begin to glimpse the true nature of universal unity.
This is definitely giving me a lot to ponder. So we've got this intricate dance between the physical, the intellectual, and the spiritual, all orchestrated by this idea of a unified deity. But it can't all just be about these grand cosmic forces and vast spiritual realities, right? I mean, how does all of this connect to our everyday lives, to our, individual experiences?
That's the crucial question, isn't it? Because what good is a unified universe if we can't find that same sense of unity within our own lives?
Exactly. It's like having $1 million sports car, but not knowing how to drive it. So how do we bridge that gap? How do we take this mind-blowing concept of universal unity and actually apply it to our own, let's face it, messy and often very ununified lives?
Well, the Urantia book suggests that. Well, the Urantia book suggests that the key lies in understanding a fundamental truth about our own nature. We, as human beings created in the image of God, are also expressions of unity.
Wait a minute. Are you saying we have that same potential for unity, that same I don't know, inherent wholeness as the universe itself,
Yeah.
that's a bold claim. And that's saying something for the Urantia book.
Bold, but I think ultimately hopeful, wouldn't you
Yeah.
say?
Yeah.
The Urantia book reminds us that just as God is this unified being, so too are we deep down unified beings. The challenge, of course, is realizing that unity in our own, day-to-day lives.
Okay. I'm intrigued, but how do we actually do that? I mean, let's be real. Most of the time I feel anything but unified, right?
Yep.
My thoughts are scattered. My emotions are all over the place. Don't even get me started on trying to, make sense of my spiritual life.
You've just perfectly described the human experience, haven't you?
Right.
But within that description is actually a clue. You use the words my thoughts, my emotions, my spiritual life. What if instead of these separate compartments, they're actually different facets of a single unified self?
Okay, I see where you're going with this. It's like we've been given all the pieces of a puzzle, but we haven't quite figured out how to put them all together yet.
Precisely. And the Urantia book offers, well, a really powerful tool for starting to assemble those pieces. It's this concept of the personality circuit.
The personality circuit. Okay, that sounds, I don't know, a little technical. Is this like our spiritual Wi-Fi connection or something?
You can think of it that way. The Urantia book describes it as this direct line of communication between our individual personalities and the universal Father. So it's like a circuit of energy, of awareness that transcends time and space.
So it's like a direct line to the source. No matter where we are in the universe, no matter what we're going through, that connection is always there.
Always there, always available. And it's through this personality circuit that we can actually begin to tap into the unifying power of God's love. It's how we start to see the interconnectedness of our experiences, how our thoughts, our feelings, and our actions, they all contribute to the tapestry of our lives.
Okay, that's a powerful image. But if this connection is always there, always available, why does it feel so hard to tap into sometimes? It's like trying to get, a strong signal when you're out in the middle of nowhere.
That's the work we're all engaged in, isn't it?
Right.
Trying to clear away the static, the distractions, the self-doubt, all of those things that prevent us from experiencing the fullness of that connection.
So it's less about, I don't know, creating something new and more about removing the obstacles that are already blocking that connection, like clearing a path maybe for a river to flow more freely.
Yeah, now you're getting it.
Yeah.
It's about aligning ourselves with the natural flow of the universe, right?
All right.
With the rhythms of mind gravity and spirit gravity that are always drawing us toward this greater unity.
Okay, this is all starting to click for now. We're part of this vast, unified cosmos, and we have this incredible potential for unity within ourselves as well. But it's an ongoing journey, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
A process of constantly refining and aligning ourselves with that source of all unity, God.
Beautifully put.
Yeah.
And the really exciting part is that this journey isn't just about our own individual selves. As we grow in unity, as we become more aligned with the divine, we naturally radiate that unity outward.
Oh, wow. So it's like that ripple effect that you see when you throw a stone into a pond. Our individual journeys toward unity are actually contributing to this greater wave of unity throughout the universe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Our efforts to find that wholeness within ourselves, to live in harmony with the Father's will, it has this ripple effect. It influences those around us. It expands outward. It touches our communities, our world, and ultimately the cosmos itself.
Wow, that's both humbling and incredibly inspiring at the same time. So as we start to wrap up our deep dive here into universal unity, what would you say is the most important thing for our listeners to take away from all of this?
Perhaps this. Amidst all of the complexities and uncertainties of life, amidst all the seeming chaos and fragmentation, there is this deep and abiding unity that's at play.
Yeah.
It's woven into the very fabric of existence. It's present in the heart of every atom, every thought, every soul.
And while we might only glimpse this unity in, these fleeting moments like those social media synchronicities we were talking about earlier, it is a reality that we can choose to orient our lives around, It's a truth we can strive to embody a bit more fully every day.
Beautifully said. And who knows? Maybe as more and more of us embark on this journey of personal and collective unification, we might just start to tip the scales, so to speak, towards a world where unity isn't just a beautiful concept, but an actual lived reality.
That's definitely a vision worth striving for. And on that hopeful note, we'll leave you with this question to ponder. How might you, in your own unique way, be a force for greater unity in the world? Until next time, keep seeking, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.